Hey everybody, here I am back on Zwift after a summer of rehabbing my back. I took a pretty nasty spill in June during a crit, ended up breaking my back, and I've spent most of the summer recovering and rehabbing. I think I'm decent enough to be able to put in some efforts and decided to join a Dirt C team for this year's ZRL racing. My first race is a points race, fine and sandy, 3 laps. Didn't know how I'd feel going into this, but might as well just get back on the bike, so they say. Tonight's race was a lot lumpier than I expected. There was a climb up and down before the sprint that really took a lot out of me. It being my first race back, I'd had kind of low expectations. And I'm pretty happy with how the night went, despite the constant sprinting and sitting, climbing and sitting, sprinting and sitting, climbing and sitting. As you'll see from the race footage, I was having a rough go. My heart rate was pretty high all night long. Here I am sitting at 160, just about to go into the little climb here, far ways from where I was in my last video back in probably May of this year. Looked at 170 heart rate for most of the night. You'll see that my avatar keeps getting up off the seat and showing the sprinting graphic. Despite not really sprinting, I'm doing 350 watts here. I think the way the game goes, if you go 2 times or 2.5 times above your FTP, your avatar sprints. In this case, going into this game, my FTP was, I think, 170 watts, down from just over 300 in the spring. So a long road ahead of me to get back to the sort of shape and fitness that I was in before the injury. But here I am. We have all winter, and hopefully you can join me on a bunch of these videos going forward. So here we are coming up to the first sprint. As you can see, I'm out of the saddle. My plan here is just to kind of stay with the top 15, 20 guys. ZRL's changed their points allocation this year where everyone gets a point on FAL, so it really matters where you give your efforts. And I figured, might as well score some points where I can. Fast forward a bit to the second lump after the sprint. It's going to be a bit choppy. I've decided not to bore you with recovery in between, but here I am going up that little climb again. Heart rate's at 175, barely hanging on at 325 watts, which is about 4.0 watts per kg. Really struggling. You can see the pain on my face there, but that's what it's all about, right? Hitting 180 almost, dropped here almost, but one of the Affogato guys was able to give me a wheel, not on purpose, but I was able to stick with the front pack. Shirt comes off. I'm dying, having a hard time breathing, looking through one eyeball. My heart rate is somewhat resting at 175, go figure. And the name of the game here is to just hopefully be able to make it to the next sprint. Tail gunning. You'll see a lot of that in this video, me just making it barely after every effort. I'm right at the back and I barely make it on until I don't, which you'll see in a few moments. Here we are coming up to the next hill and sprint. This little climb really ended up taking quite a bit out of me. It's not super long, it's not super hard, but for someone who hasn't really done much in terms of high intensity in the last 4 months, I really felt the efforts here. We're in a pack of about 30, I think, was the main selection. We're 20 minutes in now. Starting to thin out a little bit more and continuously just hanging off the back and really burying myself to make it with that front group. At this point, somebody attacks I think they're trying to, create a little separation for the FAL that's incoming on the downhill, which is a great move if you have it after the climb. Everyone's trying to recover and save their legs for the actual sprint. But if you can create a little bit of distance like this rider did, you might be able to get to the front and hold it. So here we are. I have no power up because I used it to just stick with the pack. So everyone's just going right past me. Here we go again. It looks like I've got a second, but I am barely hanging on. Shift over to the tide pool sprint, and we are about to launch. It's a long sprint. It's 20 seconds. And this course was just relentless. Once again, everyone has an arrow. I have nothing. Doing what I can to hang on for dear life, but just pure torture. Shifting over again to the next effort. Here we go. It's all the highlights tonight, folks. We're going to be heading up that climb again for the 1, 2, 3, 4th time. It feels like it's the 10th at this point, I'll be honest. Our group is still, I think, 24 at this point. So we've shed a few bodies, but not that many. It's still a pretty big group. We're going pretty fast. And here we go up that climb again. Looks like my kind of baseline heart rate is in the 170s, which if you see videos from, the spring, at this point I would expect my heart rate to be in the 150s, maybe 160s. So I'm a good at least 15 beats high, which is to be expected when I'm trying to work my way back into fitness. There they all go again. Looks like there's about a 1 or 2 second gap, but thankfully I'm able to surf some wheels, put in a couple efforts and bridge and not get dropped. There go the straps on the bibs. I can't remember the last time I did that. It was also 26 degrees in my pain cave. That's Celsius, which is way too hot for me. In the wintertime, I normally keep it at, let's call it 18. Here we go, another almost drop. Thankfully, I've got a roughneck there who's also bridging and trying not to get dropped. So I was able to surf his wheel and just make it. 5th time up the climb. Here we go again. I'm at about 170, entering 172, 173. And I did hold on to my sprint power up because I had learned from the last few times to try to bridge without using the power up, so I don't have to get into the vicious cycle of using my power up early and not during the sprint where it matters. So coming up onto the boardwalk sprints after this climb. Once again, we're all climbing at about, I'd say, high 4s to low 5s, WKG. A little rest before the sprint comes in, going downhill. Heart rate's in the 180s. Trying to coast as much as I can, recover, get my heart rate down as low as possible before the next effort. Here we go, left-hand turn. Gonna go into the sprint in 200 meters. You can see the top left-hand side there. We're clipping along pretty decently, and everyone's got their sprints, and I managed to, like I said, hang on to mine and score some decent points. 14, 15, 16 there. I don't know where I landed, but I was pretty happy with that. Another little gap, so I have to continue working with the others to make sure we don't get dropped. Thankfully, I didn't put in too much work. It was sitting in the 150s and 160s. Here we come up to the tide pool sprint. This is the last sprint now. just before the last climb and the finish. So I've got myself my first steamroller power up, and I can't remember whether it really mattered on this section of the sprint to use this power up, because I think I saw the CRR being roughly the same on sand as it is on asphalt. So I'm not sure it made much of a difference at this point. I think it would have mattered more on the climb. And you'll see in a minute where I missed my opportunity there. Here we come up on the last sprint. I did use my steamroller, but I think the arrow was a lot more effective on this sprint. You can see kind of everyone going past me, despite me. I'm sprinting at like 350 watts. I barely call that a sprint. So I got another steamroller, and here I am thinking, great, I have a steamroller. I thought the finish was going to be dirt, this sort of stuff. Turns out I was completely wrong, and I got myself into a little trouble you'll see in a second, where I hung on to the steamroller, didn't use it here where I start seeing gaps, and you can see me messing around. I was trying to switch my song to get some pump up music to finish, but everyone's just taking off on me. I'm kind of like maxing out, doing the best I can, still not using my steamroller. You got to use it here, you noob. I haven't been doing this for 4 years, so a bit of a brain fart there, lapse in judgment, thinking that I could use it towards the end. 2 kilometers to go, thinking, okay, well, at least I'm 21st. I can spend the last little while with this little pack of guys. I think we were 4 or 5 riders who were kind of chasing for that last little bit. I wasn't going to make it 8 seconds to the main group at this point. So this is about where I start realizing, oh no, the finish is not on dirt. So this steamroller is absolutely useless to me. And I was a little bit frustrated with myself, but what are you going to do? It's my first race back after 5 months off or whatever it is. Didn't really take the time to learn the course, so that's totally on me. But power-ups matter. They're a big part of the game, and it's important to know what's to be used when and where and how. So here we are coming up to the sprint, and figured I'd go for 20th place overall, and there we go. That's the end of it. So here's how it all went down. Dirty Rascals Hackers finished with 13:03. I ended up with 318 points total, 273 on the FAL, and 45 on the finishing. Congrats to the Roughnecks taking the overall win, and Affogato second. Solid dirt showing on the night. Thanks for tuning in. Join me next week. It's a scratch race where we're taking on some more Makuri Island climbing, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.